Alright, so Subnautica 2 just dropped a few hours ago as of me making this video, and I decided today, before jumping into Subnautica 2 for another video I plan to make on that, I instead chose to go back and play the OG Subnautica 2. For those real ones out there who have been sticking with the Subnautica franchise like a trained dog, you would remember that Subnautica 2 has been a thing for years now. Below Zero, a game that is mixed, to say the least, in people's minds. Now, you've probably heard of this game before, mostly due to the numerous YouTube video essays ranting about why it's a bad game, but I honestly think that Below Zero is still a banger. It's just more Subnautica, however, it's also kind of less Subnautica at the same time. However, the fact that it's a standalone game and takes 6 hours to fully complete, which is, you know, barely more than Mixtape, for example, does make room for controversy, I'll admit it. But I love this game, and today I got every single trophy, including the Platinum Trophy on Subnautica Below Zero, or Subnautica 2, I guess. In total, there is 14 trophies, including the Platinum on Subnautica Below Zero. It's very fast, as I just said, taking on average 10 hours to complete, and nothing is missable unless you end the game ahead of other trophies, but that's your fault.
That's what I'm saying.
So, starting off with Subnautica Below Zero, the game opens up to a much different setting than the OG Subnautica. Below Zero is a lot more narrative driven opposed to actual like mystery and survival exploration, but the story of the game is the main character we play as, being named Robin, is going down to a planet where Altera used to be at, and where her sister used to work before going missing. Something happened on this planet a while ago, and nobody seems to want to say what happened. It's all a mystery, but we end up voluntarily crash landing here, unlike any other Subnautica game. But upon landing, you end up on land, actually, which is a sparse difference to Subnautica instantly. However, we can begin stage 1 of the Platinum after crash landing regarding the beginning and the early game. And in this stage, the trophies we'll go for vary from just finding our drop pod, encountering aliens, and then building a jukebox. So to start with finding our drop pod, it's a very linear path, and it's also marked on your little hut or whatever. So after landing, I just ran like an absolute madman all the way until dropping into the ocean below. I then swam all the way until making it to my drop pod, of course on the way there grabbing materials as we progress, because it's time to start constructing our new life on this planet. Once entering the drop pod, I then got the first trophy of the game right here. Now, much like Subnautica's trophy list, the next goal for us was to make the Sea Truck, which is this game's kind of sea moth level vehicle. And for the next 40 minutes of the game, I was genuinely just swimming around every single corner and crevice I could nearby the pod, grabbing materials to make the starter set of tools we need. And coming straight off of Subnautica, when playing this game, I was already locked in on what you do need to make all this stuff, because this game runs on the exact same sort of engine as their first Subnautica game. Hell, everything looks the exact same as well. It's basically on the same planet if you were to compare the two. And this is a very big difference to Subnautica 2, because after playing that game a little bit today, it all looks completely different. So yeah, that's definitely a cool feature. But once I finally acquired the scanner and the Sea Glide, I began to make some big boy moves. Also, real fast, let's just pause. IGN just gave Subnautica 2 a 7 out of 10, and their reasoning was having too much water. That's crazy. Anyways, I then chased down the first trophy of the game from the story, being called Xenobiology, from encountering a sapient alien life form. Now, this alien location can be found by just going 250 meters south and slightly west from the drop pod. Once doing so, you then get a distress call source at about a 200 meters of depth. Now, since I didn't have the Sea Truck yet because it's very early, I had to rely solely on oxygen plants to keep me breathing. And while going down, you'll see a lot of those alien-styled structures, and look for more of these that will be pulsing with green lights and low beeps. You then have to follow those flashing structures into a cave system until you come across an alien door. It's very obvious. Thankfully, we can breathe in there. And this is also where we need to be now. After interacting with the objective that pops up once this voice stops talking and tells us to interact with it, we then absorb the alien life form that is here into our subconscious. Yes, we now have an alien living on our mind, quite literally. The voices are real now, chat. So yeah, this is kind of a silly plot for the game already, but this actually kicks off how you beat it. Spoiler alert, to beat the game, you have to construct an alien body for this life form that's now living on our head. And then once you do, they take us with them through space. It's a whole big thing. But also, here's the trophy once we recover from becoming an unwanted schizophrenia patient. Anyways, moving on from that, I then explored a little bit while I was down here, because I was very far down in an important area, and they had a lot of blueprints to scan, and they were very good ones, if that, unlocking me the Sea Truck right here, while I also got attacked by a shark. That's just not cool, bro. So I can now make the Sea Truck, which is pretty much what I went and did. It took me like 10 more minutes of farming to get the materials I needed, did, but once I did gather them all, I climbed up the mobile vehicle bay, threw in all of my materials, and the sea truck got spit out with a trophy pop as well. So now that I have the sea truck, my goal was to go find Delta Station. This is one of the major snowy island areas and also holds the radio tower of sorts that we need to shut down for a trophy much later in the game. This island can be found by just going southeast/south from the drop pod, or just waiting for the beacon to get activated because it will eventually, and mine did as I was nearing it. But then once on the island, there really isn't much to behold. You do get a cutscene about halfway through, however, from this wanted woman who is hiding out on this planet named Margaret. She also has a few trophies tied to her and the story, by the way. And spoiler, this girl also is hinted at in Easter eggs in Subnautica 2 as well, which was very cool to see. But other than the destroyed side facility next to the radio tower, which had the jukes box inside of it, there isn't really much else here. The only reason or importance regarding this place's existence is the fact that we do have to construct a module to shut it down later in the game. So I then left and I decided to then build my base for today, both to have a solid standing ground that isn't the drop pod, but also to make a jukebox inside of it for that trophy pop. I also did make my base right next to the Delta Station base because it's a good middle point from there to the other parts of the game we need to go. Also, there's a beacon above it, so I won't lose it. I then just made myself a good little base, nothing insane, far less cool than my base in Subnautica, but hey, we're on crunch time right now, baby. After constructing the basics to be living inside of it, I then just threw that jukebox down right away and the trophy popped instantly. I, of course, also did throw on some tunes, which would get, very annoying later on, but for now it's a vibe. So I then chased down the last trophy in this first stage called Another Survivor from Finding Margaret's Home. Now her home doesn't get marked itself, but rather just the last position she was seen or detected at. So yeah, thanks game for making it hard to find her. Anyways, yeah, finding her is a bit annoying, just because the marker it gives us is not really nearby her home. I ended up overshooting it instantly and going way too far down in the wrong direction, but I did end up finding some good resources, so I wasn't honestly that upset. However, to actually find her house, you kind of have to do a loop downwards under the radio marker. It's very weird. I honestly, don't really know how, but the trophy from finding her will pop even by just coming close to her house. I didn't even realize I was there until it just faded into my view, so yeah, GG's baby. Anyways, in her house, there really isn't that much there. In fact, her storyline isn't actually that important to us. The first time you see her is actually the last time we ever have to actually interact with her for anything regarding the platinum. Nearing the end of the game, we do have to come here once more, but it's to actually just use it as a waypoint for another POI. So yeah, Margaret is actually far less impactful in this game than I first thought. Anyways, yeah, that's stage 1 finished with. So beginning stage 2, this is really the last stage with trophies. The final stage is after it, and even then it's also a part of this stage. But to begin, we have to go find the Glacial Bay, which is a massive above water area in this game. That is where nearly everything endgame and story-wise is found at. It's also like their main reason in making this game, I believe. I'm pretty sure this game was more of just a tech experiment for those developers opposed to an actual standalone adventure, considering how it's so short and more than half of Below Zero is actually above ground, not in water. But to get to the Glacial Bay, it's very easy. Just go south/southwest from the drop pod and eventually you run into a massive glacier mass. Now I overshot it like crazy and I was way too far to the left, but if you just rotate around the massive glacier enough, you'll find the actual dock we're after. And I eventually did right here. So once making it up to the surface, it's a bit challenging. This area is very deadly due to the cold and the storms that happen. Whenever a storm happens, you want to make sure you're not out and about because it will drop your temperature like crazy. And you'll probably die from freezing. But all in all, the goal here is just find blueprints for the cold suit, pangolin, and the snow fox. We aren't trying to really do much else than that because it's going to be far harder and it's going to be a lot easier if we just get those blueprints, run back home, make them, and then come back. But while doing this, you also do get a beacon activated at the Phi Robotics landing pad at some point, which is a good waypoint for us to find this place again. And there's also a facility nearby that holds a lot of story lore and, of course, blueprints that we need. Long story short, I would find everything I needed. Also, by the dock where we came in at is the bridge that we need to fix for a trophy later on, and also to access the endgame items like the antidote. But for now, I just headed back to the crib to make the various things we needed in this area. So I got on that right away. I had quite the shopping list, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, the first thing I did make was just the spy penguin, which is a remote-controlled penguin essentially. And upon just crafting it, the trophy popped. Now the spy penguin is used to actually grab the antidote and also to make the cold suit because you'll see soon. So I then made the other stuff and then I drove all the way back to the Glacial Basin. Now once arriving there, I had to find some magnetite, but I did because there is veins on the island and it's very easy to get it. I then dropped down the pad for the snow fox and then finally made the damn thing. After doing so and riding it, the trophy popped into my lap. So the next goal is to get the cold suit. Now I had forgotten how you make this from my last time playing this game, but long story short, you need to get stalker fur from the snow stalkers, and the only way to do that is by using the spy pangolin and then grabbing it with its little claw. Simply find a snow stalker, drop down the pangling, and real fast just grab 4 fur clumps, which is all we need. Make sure to do this as fast as possible because you still do lose temperature when controlling the pangling. Anyways, and then raced home after getting what I needed. I made the cold stew, and I got cherry pop from that right here. I also made the fluid that bridge needed to work again. So once heading back to the glacial basin once more, I fixed the bridge, and I got the cherry pop from that as well. So like I said earlier, after fixing the bridge, you can then get the antidote to heal the virus that is on this planet, much like in Subnautica 1. And to do so, all you have to do is ride these snow fox until finding this clearing with a ramp of sorts. Now don't go up the ramp, but rather below it, and you can shove the pangling device into this little cave, because inside is just the antidote chilling. I'm not sure how the hell this ended up here, but I guess it is. So after grabbing that, we can't just go use the antidote right away because that would be too easy. But we do get a recipe to go make it. So I headed back to my seed truck real fast to make it because I actually had a fabricator on this as well. So I then made the antidote, and I then headed to use it because that is also on the same island. But you basically have to go across the bridge again and then find another facility that is far further on the island. I honestly have no idea how you get there. Shout out to YouTube tutorials and the trophy guide for that one. But once there, administering the antidote is actually very easy. All you do is walk up to the little machine, insert it, and the machine does the rest. So once the antidote got administered, the trophy popped, and here it is. Now we only have 2 real trophies left, and this is sort of stage 3 now. End game and leaving. All good things have to come to an end, and so does Subnautica Below Zero. Anyway. No, seriously, this stage isn't long at all. The requirements to leave and do both the Pirate Radio trophy and Out of Mind trophy are very easy. Even combined, it took me half as much time than it did to make the goddamn rocket ship in Subnautica. But I did do Pirate Radio first because it's, easier than the Out of Mind trophy, and all I had to do was make the test override module. And it doesn't require anything complex. I mean, just look at that item request. Not even kyanite. We still require titanium. That's crazy. Anyways, I just crafted it, and then I walked like 5 steps over because my base was right next to the Delta station. I then threw in the module. Now the trophy doesn't pop until you do hit test on this little screen, so once I did, there was a trophy pop. Anyways, the grind then began with the final trophy I need to get being called Out of Mind from constructing an alien vessel. This requires us to visit 3 new alien facilities that have a scattered piece of the alien structure, being the skeleton, the organs, and the tissues. Now finding them is actually harder than making them, but first I did find the skeleton, which was in this like mushroom biome place, and next I found the tissues, which were a bit harder to find because they were in the glacial basin this time. And then finally, I found the organs. Now, the organs can actually be found in the same location, or at least near the same location that you make all of these. So before doing that, I gathered all of the materials I would need to beat the game. And this was all in the crystal caves, by the way. So I had to really push my sea truck's depth limit to the breaking point. Literally, I went way past it, and we got fucked up royally at the very end of the game. Anyways, long story short, I barely crawled my way to the facility. I was also dying of both health, food, and water. Now this is the place where you actually do make the alien vessel, it's where you craft it at. So I had to sit through minutes of dialogue in between each component, all the while my health and sustenance were both draining rapidly. So I genuinely croaked at the very end of the game after constructing everything, and I died in the middle of story lore being explained, all of the good stuff. But thankfully upon my death it didn't soft lock anything, and the trophy does still pop. Also, the final location got marked on my map, so I then traveled there. No more sea truck, rest in peace, but I still made it there, no issues. Now once arriving, this is the final location of the game, and you basically just help set up this like portal ship thing. It's very cool. It's a little weird, but it is cool. And then to end off the game, we basically begin whatever this alien has in store for us, and the final trophy of the game pops after all was said and done, and we left 4564b, the infamous planet. And here is that platinum trophy on Subnautica Below Zero. So that was the Below Zero platinum trophy experience. I honestly have mixed opinions on this game after playing it again because, one, I do love Subnautica. Literally everything about it is so fun. But again, this title was very non-needed. If anything, it should have just been a DLC story in Subnautica itself, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. Subnautica 2 video tomorrow. That game is a banger, and more stuff on the way as always. Thanks for watching, boys. Peace out.